Hello and welcome. My name is MiniBetrayal and this is Dyson Sphere Program, where today we're going to go visit a new planet. So, I'm starting off here just by making sure I'm ready to go to the new planet. We are heading off to HarriXS 1. That is, at least that is the current name of our innermost planet, which we are going to set up into a planet which essentially just makes power. Which we can then send to other places on the planet. So I'm making myself a bunch of foundations because I'm not certain what the conditions on the planet are. So picked up the stone and steel to do that, and we are heading off in the direction of HarriXS 1, which luckily isn't too far away at this point. So when we get there, I have a quick flyby. I don't actually land here, which works out causing its own problems, but we'll do a quick flyby, and it's basically just a snookable. There's no caverns or caves, or not caves, chasms or canyons. They're the two words I was looking for. So we should be able to build nicely on that. I don't really need the foundations, and this is where I make a bit of a mistake. So I want to head over to our secondary planet, Anaqua, where we are currently making solar panels. So I can then bring them back to HarriXS 1 and put down those solar panels. Unfortunately, I used up the vast majority of my mech power getting to HarriXS 1, meaning that this is a little bit of a slow journey. What I should have done is gone back to our home planet, HarriXS 3, and gotten up on power, because, even though we've got juice in the mech, it's really rather slow at this point. We're just running on graphite, it takes a bit of time to get there, but we manage it in the end. There's not really much to say at this point. I'm desperately trying to go as fast as I can using that bias thing there to make sure that we actually land on the planet and don't overshoot, because that would be bad. And then, so here we are on Anaqua, and we, the first thing I do is power myself up, and then I make the second mistake of the series, or rather, second mistake of the series, that would be nice, second mistake of the episode. I head over to the titanium before realizing, wait, I didn't come here for titanium, I came here for solar panels. So, get the solar panels. I try to head back to the charging port to charge myself up, kind of messed that up. So we've got, I believe, 1100 solar panels on us, and I want to be able to charge myself once we get to HarriXS 1. So unfortunately I don't have the inventory space for that, so what I did there was I just threw down what Tesla towers I had, the short range poles, and picked up that, I think there was 7, maybe 8 power towers there. So once we get to the new planet and we're putting down these solar panels, I can use those towers to charge myself. So, so we've done that. So now we are on the way to HarriXS 1, which is largely on the other side of the solar system here. Quick look. So we've got, there's 150% on the wind power, but you can only put the wind turbines so close to each other. So I'm probably just going to ignore that. The solar panels, you can butt them up right against each other, and I forget what the number was, but it was above 100%. So it's a good power. It's a good planet for solar power. Okay, so we've landed here on HarriXS 1 now. What I'm doing here is looking for the join between the prime meridian and the equator, because that's where I like to start, and then making full use of the mod I've got, which gives me a larger build range. And we're just and here's me using those power towers I've got just to help me charge myself up a little bit. You'll see me do this a couple of times. Dismantle them, take them with me, and keep at it with the solar panels. So my plan is to ring the equator. Now HarriXS 1, it has horizontal rotation, which means it's very off kilter, I guess. Like the Earth, I think, has something like 20 degrees of axial tilt. That's what gives us seasons. It's not exactly 20, I think it's... I forget what the number is. but it doesn't spin like perfectly in sync with its plane of orbit around the sun, or perfectly perpendicular to it. It's off a little bit. That's what gives us seasons. This planet we're on now, Arioth 1, has I did make a note of it in my head when I saw it as I was playing, and I've forgotten what the number is. I think it's 70 something degrees. So it's like almost rolling on its side. This means it has extreme seasons. Like for 6 months, basically the entire northern hemisphere would be in the sun, or the entire southern hemisphere would be in the sun, and the other would be entirely in the dark. And then at the which way around is it? Yeah, so on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, I think it is. The sun is basically coming down from the North Pole or the South Pole, depending which season it is. And that gives some weird effects when you're ringing a planet along the equator like this. So during the more sort of equinox times, it works pretty much like any other planet. The planet revolves, you get half a day of sun, half a day of night. Does that make sense? Go figure it out. It's spread evenly between day and night. But then when you're on those solstices and the sun's coming from one of the poles, because the solar panels themselves, they stick up from the ground a bit, that means you can actually get the entire ring of solar panels in the sunlight. So rather than just having half of them active at any time, you'll always have at least half of them active. But at sometimes, and we will see this a little bit later, you actually get the entire ring, all of the solar panels active at the same time, which I think is really nice. It's a good little bonus for this. So you would have seen on like the anti-meridian there, 180 degrees east or 180 degrees west, there's a little gap. That's just because the number of solar panels you need to ring a planet, which I worked out in this episode, is 333. Interesting. Doesn't quite, so that number and the width doesn't quite match up with the circumference of the planet. There's a gap of 1. So I just put a little belt there, not to do anything, that's just to remind myself that that's the anti-meridian, that's where the gap is. Okay, so I've got enough solar panels to do 3 rings around the equator, so that's what I'm doing here. And this will take a little bit more time, so I will also take advantage of this time to say now is the time to write your suggestions down below in the comments for what you think we should name Arioth 1. So write your suggestions, and in a couple of episodes time we will come back to them. I will pick my favourite and we will name this planet. So see if you can come up with names that kind of identify or signify what the planet is, what it's doing. So it's power generation, so think like power stations, or I don't know, reactors, things like that. So see if you can come up with a cool sounding name. Yeah, I'll pick my favourite in probably about a week's time when I do my next batch of recording. So yeah, I've been floating backwards and forwards between a couple of different methods of placing these down, placing a batch, or ghosting in a batch and then placing them, or just going along one by one like that as the mech moves. I've got the drones, the drone speed at the moment is just a fraction faster than the mech, which means mostly I can just run like you're seeing here and the drones will keep up. But yeah, as you can also see, they're not quite just fast enough than the mech, so there's a couple of gaps, so we have to go around and sort that. And I think with all of these active at the same time, we get something like whoops. Oh yeah, that's an example of what happens when I mess up the sail because I didn't have any power on me. And here's me just looking for my drones. There they come in. So yeah, we'll power up. What was I saying? Oh yes, I think with everything active, which we do see in a little bit, we get, is that 290 something megawatts? Yeah, and as you can see, at the moment the sun is coming down from the pole. I'm not sure which pole that is at the moment, but you can see all of those solar panels are blue, which means they're all active because we're in one of the solstices at the moment. So a fraction less than 300 megawatts, which isn't bad, and we've got plenty more to put on that planet. Okay, so back home, and we've got a couple more things to work on in this episode. We're making all of that power on Arioff 1, or whatever it ends up getting called. We need to get it places, so that's what the researchers I'm working on at the moment are. Unfortunately, I've landed here just a little bit too far away from my factory with zero power. This is something I learned, because I have absolutely zero power. I don't even have enough power to sort of glide over the oceans, so I can walk on the ocean floor, which I found quite interesting. I think in the end, yeah, you can dismantle things outside your normal reach range. So I dismantle a belt with an oil on it, use that oil to give myself just a little bit of power so I can get over there, pick up a bit more oil. It worked out a bit faster than waiting for the drones to try and connect me to the grid. But anyway, here we are. So yes, that's what the research we are doing is for. We've got the power transmission itself. That gives us the thing that lets us charge up the accumulators, and we need interplanetary logistics, or interstellar logistics rather, so I can actually get that power from one planet to another. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I picked up 1100 solar panels from an Aqua, and well, as I said, it takes 333 to do one ring of a planet, and we did 3 rings, so that leaves me with 101 solar panels left over. So I thought what I would do is make another square of 100 solar panels here on our home planet, kind of opposite the other 100, the idea being that they'll kind of balance each other out, so instead of having like a spike of power whenever those 100 panels are in the light, it'll mostly even out. Haven't really tested that to see how well it goes, but yeah, unfortunately I've built this on a bit of an island area, so it needed to use those foundations. Luckily I did make the foundations earlier. Okay, so we'll get down those panels. Now I do still have one left over. I put it down somewhere, I forget exactly where. And yes, this is me realizing that accumulators, which we will need to build, need blue motors, the supermagnetic... it's going too fast, I didn't read it. It's a supermagnetic ring, supermagnetic engine, supermagnetic coil, something like that. But we can't even build those because we haven't researched them. So I rejigged the research queue to try and get that one. Now, so I tried to look at building the accumulators on Arioff 1, but there's no silicon there, so we'll have to do something with that on an Aqua as well. Then I realized that the actual energy transmission thing, the what's it called, energy exchanger, that needs particle containers, the purple boxes, and processors. Also, neither of which I had researched. So I've popped them in the research queue there. So at the moment we are doing the supermagnetic rings, looking at the top left. And then, I'm not sure what that second one is off the top of my head, but then the next two are what we need to get the processor so we can actually build the things. Okay. So, one of the things we also need is, not aluminium alloy, this isn't Astroneer, is titanium alloy. Which needs sulfuric acid. So that's sort of what I'm looking at now. Sulfuric acid itself needs oil, water, and stone. Just raw stone, not processed stone. So did a little bit of scouting around, found a place near the South Pole that has a couple of oil nodes and some stone right next to each other. And of course there's water everywhere, so that's easy. And as an added bonus, to make the titanium alloy, you also need steel, and there is also an iron deposit not too far away. So the rest of this episode is basically concerning ourselves with making the titanium alloy. Before I do that though, I get sick of crafting the... I can't remember what they're called. They're the little blue things that are used to make like power towers and a couple of other things. They use prisms, which uses glass. I'm making too many of them by hand, so I don't automate the whole thing, but I at least use just use an assembly machine, throwing it into a chest, using the extra glass we're making just to make some prisms for me. So hopefully I'll have to pick up less glass in the long run. So yeah, I don't think we do anything else at the moment. Yeah, just crafting all the stuff I will need, so power towers and... in fact, I think it was just power towers actually, because I need to get power over to the South Pole. Yeah, so this is where we are. We've got our 2 nodes here. You can see from the grid there how close we are to the pole. It does make building a little bit tricky, but I find something I'm not entirely unhappy with. I start building that way, sort of away from the pole, forgetting that, you know, that's not really a good idea. Particularly because we're building right over one of those discontinuities in the grid, and that makes things look a bit weird. But I start setting up things like similar to how we had the other oil processing, with the crude oil going in on the middle, the refined oil coming out on the middle, and the hydrogen coming out on the edges. But yeah, you can see that it doesn't match up, it doesn't look right, so, you know, screw that. Let's redesign that. So instead what I do is have the crude oil go back on itself like that. So they merge up first and then it forms a line. I'll just have a line of refineries there in the middle with 2 outputs on one side, makes it nice and easy. Refined oil on the belt further away from the refineries and hydrogen on the belt that's closer to the refineries. Run out of a bunch of stuff. I forget what I ran out of this particular time. Might have just been power actually, but there are a couple of times where I have to head back to the main base to pick up stuff. Let's see, what are we going to get? Some belts. Not enough belts, I can tell you that from experience. Well, anyone can say that with hindsight, I guess. Yeah, I entirely lose where the new base is, fly off into space because I'm really terrible at doing that. Okay, and here we go again. Right, so I don't like ratio this ever so carefully. I think I end up with six refineries, so that should give me 3 crude oil per second. And yeah, so we've got a similar deal with storage for hydrogen just there. That's a problem for future MiniBetrayal there. And then, so I think it's just, I forget if it's 1 crude oil gives us 1 sulfuric acid, or it might be 2 to 1. But anyway, we've got some stone right there, which we also need for the sulfuric acid, so we'll mine that up. And we've got, of course, we've got water everywhere on this planet, so that's easy. Just a couple of those down. And then, yeah, so similar kind of deal. Okay, we've finally got the blue motors done, with 2 belts on each side. On the left, from this perspective, we've got the refined oil, and then the water, and then what is now on the bottom, we've got the stone, and then the output line. So how many of these do I end up putting down? I think 4. Yeah, so I've got 4 of these. Just making sure everything is connected up to each other. Still not connected to the main grid at this point. I have to go back and get more stuff again. I think this time I'm grabbing sorters. Yeah, that's right. So pop down the last 2 of them. There we go. And then, so we've got our sulfuric acid. We need some steel. So that's what happens when you smelt iron twice. So I set up 4 miners here. I haven't counted exactly how much they'll put out, but I put down 12 smelters. So remember, one of these Mark 1 belts needs 6 smelters to turn ore into plates. So I put down 12 smelters turning ore into plates, and then kind of, well, you'll see what I do. in a little bit, but I side load it halfway down to get the second lot. Okay, each of those feed directly into another smelter, of course, to make some steel. We'll get that all powered up, or not powered up yet, just connected to each other. Yeah, so 2 of the miners, they feed in right from the top. I run out of belts, but you can see that little marker down there. That is halfway down that line. So when I go and grab some more belts, the other two miners rather will feed into that little input there. Okay, so going home, grabbing a few more things, just making what I need to finish off this project, and powering myself as well. Bit of a theme in that lately. So drawing towards the end of the episode, we'll quickly get this finished up. So yeah, there's 2 miners there feeding in halfway into that steel smelting column. So now we've got sulfuric acid, we've got steel, and the other thing that goes into making titanium alloy is of course titanium, which we are not making on this planet. We cannot make on this planet, so I need storage chest, much like we did with the other thing that's using titanium, the titanium crystals. We'll just have to bring that in manually. The titanium alloy itself is made in a smelter, so we put down a bunch of them. I don't remember exactly how many we put down. They feed into another belt, which go into another Mark II chest at the end. But that's all we've got time for this episode. In the meantime, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.